Hello everybody, welcome to my very first solo RPG video. I still don't really know what I'm doing. So you'll have to bear with me a little bit here. So the plan is I'm going to use the rules that I wrote in my GM tables to go on a little solo adventures here on YouTube with everybody. We'll see how it turns out. So as a first step, I want to introduce the rules that I'm using and some of the materials that I'm using. I have a special notebook. It is called a rocket book. It's basically just an erasable notebook. It uses erasable pens. The big special thing about it is that you can scan the pages into like your Google Drive or something directly. It'll send you an email, or it will send it to one of several sources that you can specify ahead of time in the app. So I've only just started using the Rocketbook, but it's working out really well. I also have Rocketbook cards, so I can make little character sheets out of those. I've got a standard set here of 7 gaming dice. If you aren't familiar with those, we got a D4, 4-sided, a D6, D8, 2D10. This is percentile, so if you roll, that is a 26, right? Percentile. Then we have our D12 and the big famous D20. So I've got standard dice, and this is a deck of playing cards. It's plastic cards, and they're narrow. I just like that they're red. I like the color red. In this deck, I have removed the kings so that I can use them with my tables. I will show you that right now. Okay, so this is the thing that I wrote so that I can play solo games in whatever setting I want to. I can use the same rules for just about everything. I do tweak them occasionally to suit the game and the setting, but so the rules here, I've created one character already, although I'm going to add some detail. Then we're going to also go through and create a second character so you can see what that's like. So I usually play with 2 characters. And then on the back here, we've got my GM rules, or tables. And this helps me generate, randomly generate things that maybe I'm having trouble coming up with on my own, or things that I shouldn't come up with on my own as the player. So, all right, so the rules are pretty simple. I have the 6 stats here. I'll show you the character sheet also, so you can see on here. We've got our 6 skills up at the top, each rated with one of the die sizes. So the smaller the die, the better the character is at that skill. So this character is good at athletics and diplomacy. And then when we make a skill check, we're going to roll the die associated with that skill. We want to roll low, at or under the target number. And the target number is usually 10 or under. So rolling a d20, you have a pretty high chance of failure, about a half chance of failure, just for an easy check. So the setting that I want to start with today is loosely based on Eclipse Phase. I've got, let me see if I can switch over to, I've got the PDF of Eclipse Phase set up here. I'll switch over to that so we can talk a little bit about Eclipse Phase. All right, there we go. So this is the front and back cover of the book. This is the first edition of Eclipse Phase. There is also a second edition. I'm just using the first edition because the lore is the same, really, from one to the other. And that's the part that I care about. And this first edition book is the one that I'm more familiar with, so I just keep using it. Table of contents. Let's see here. So in Eclipse Phase, this is post-human. It's a transhuman setting in sort of a not quite near future, but not exactly a distant future either. It's like maybe 100 to 200 years in the future. There is a timeline somewhere, but that's less important than how we got there. So there was AI developed, and they are AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence. So that means they are basically not limited in their functions. So they start out smart, and they can make themselves smarter. They can adapt to whatever purpose or situation that they encounter. So, and those AGI end up becoming hostile to humanity and kind of torch the earth. There are still some people living on Earth, but it's not a good place. You don't want to go there. There's a big cloud of defense satellites around the Earth that warn everybody off. Don't come here. So most of humanity is out in the solar system, on stations and moons and ships, and some planetary colonies. And there's still AI dangers out in the solar system as well. And the part of the setting that I really enjoy, in particular, is the gates. So we got out to Mars, and I think it was one of the moons of Mars. We found this mysterious dome of sort of black lattice material. It was like a metal that we couldn't identify. And, after some experimentation, the required caution, we went through this gate, and it took us to a far distant world in another galaxy. So these gates, they're still finding more gates. They go to a new world, and then that world has other gates. They fly out into the solar systems of those worlds and find more gates. And so the gate network is constantly expanding, but they mostly encounter nothing. Occasionally they encounter a world that is habitable, but sometimes it's dangerous, and something strange is going on with the gates. Like, people will lose time, like long stretches of time, hours or days, sometimes weeks. So some people have just gone missing and haven't come back yet. So I've always been really fascinated with these gates. So what I'd like to do for my solo game is create a little small team of gate crashers. And the specific scenario is I'm going to generate randomly with my GM tools. So the way I play, I usually generate the scenario and then I start making my characters, because I have a better idea of, I don't know, what the setting is exactly, and what kind of characters I'd want to send into that situation. So let us generate our scenario. And we use cards for this, so grab my deck of cards if I can. And I will show you how I do this. It's a little bit different each time, actually, but so we're going to start in the middle of things. So we've just gone through the gate. We are now, our little team of 2, we're on the other side. And I'm going to see what we have encountered. The first question after you've gone through this intergalactic gate is there a gate on the other side so I can return? So I'm going to pull a card. Red is yes, black is no. Is there a gate on the other side? Yes. Okay, good. That's a diamond, so it's a red card. So we've got a gate on the other side. What sort of environment, what sort of biome here are we in? I'm going to use this so you can see a little bit better. Oh, let me come back here. So, sorry. Okay. So I pulled this card here, my queen. So we have a gate on the other side. All right, and then using the table at the top right here, wilderness biome, I will figure out what kind of environment this gate is in. So we've got a wide plain at the bottom of a canyon. That's what I've got. So let me, I've actually got this document up on itch.io for people to download themselves. It's pay what you want. So let's see here if I can get that up for people. All right, little technical difficulties here. Okay, so this is the web page on itch.io. It's called Pocket RPG. And it's pay what you want. It's just it's a 2-page document. It comes with the rules and the GM tables. And let's come back here. Okay, so I'm going to set up here the PDF of the GM tables, or of the whole thing, so you can follow along. It'll take me just a moment here. Okay, here we go. So here is the PDF of my GM tables. So I just drew the 4 of clubs on the wilderness biome table. So we've got the wide plain in a canyon. So that is basically how that works. Come back here. All right. So I'm going to generate up a few more details here. Just until I get a sense of what's going on, what the danger is, what my characters are doing there, and then we'll start finishing creating our characters. I'm going to go back to the PDF here until we get there. All right, so we've got a gate at the bottom of a canyon. And what I'm going to figure out using these room area tables, what we find or what we can immediately see in the area. So I'm going to draw on size here. The first part of this room area is 4 cards. We're going to draw 4 cards. First one here is 9 of hearts. So that gives us a small size. This wide plane is apparently a small wide plane. Then we've got the 7 of spades. Just spades. So that is, the decor here is grim or horrific. That could mean that it's just kind of a forbidding environment. It could also mean that there is something horrific, like a creature or some sort of disturbing object around us. So we'll find that out here. Yeah, for a number of doors, we've got hearts. So that is 2 doors, and this is, passages into or out of the area. So this is plain at the bottom of canyon. Presumably it's like a ravine, sort of like. So we've got it's a relatively narrow ravine. We've got 2 ways out, like a river has passed through, so they're opposite each other, more or less. And for contents, this one you can draw more than once, but we're going to just start with 1 and see what we've got. Contents, we got diamonds, so that is sections. So that means the area is split up somehow into compartments. That is difficult to imagine. We've got a gate in one section, probably the larger of the sections. What are the others? We don't know. We haven't seen them yet. But we can look up. We can look up and see that we're at the bottom of a ravine or a canyon. It's a relatively small space, but a wide section of this canyon where the gate is. So we've got questions. For every answer, more questions. Always in a solo game. So, first of all, we can flesh out all of these details, but before we get too far into that, I want to figure out why our team of 2 is here. What was our task in coming here? So, I'm going to draw a card for that. We've got 5 of diamonds. So we've got diamonds is protect or retrieve, and 5 is a criminal or fugitive. Oh boy, so we are retrieving a fugitive who has escaped through this gate. All right. So presumably we're either bounty hunters or some sort of more elite force, like a FBI type organization, or I guess it would be CIA, maybe CIA, the Eclipse Phase equivalent of the CIA. But we can actually find that out with our factions table, figure out who exactly has sent us. We don't need to assume. So this table we draw 2 cards. I've got, the first card is a 4, so that moves us down to this military police. Makes sense. And then within the military police table, we've got a queen. So we are tax or bounty collectors. We're bounty hunters. After a fugitive. Oh. Oh boy. Oh boy. Alrighty. Another important question to answer is, what did this person do to make them a criminal? There are a few ways of figuring that out. I'm going to start with the events table. 8 of hearts. Events. We've got the law. And hearts is gentle or luxurious. The law. So, gentle, luxurious, the law. I'm going to interpret that in this situation as some sort of bribery or under-the-counter deal. This person is either a former law enforcement agent of some kind who was caught taking bribes, or they were the person doing the bribing. So we've got 2 possible options. So we'll say we're going to draw a card. If it's a red card, this is the person who was bribing the law enforcement. If it's a black card, it'll be the law enforcement agent themselves. Here, let me... I'm going to switch back here. So you can see the card draws. All right. What do we get? Oh, it's red. So this is the criminal who was bribing law enforcement. So I'm trying to think here. I'm trying to decide whether I want to start finish creating my characters at this point, or should we keep generating the scenario? And I think that at this point we could totally generate our characters. So let us do that and get that done before we go too much further. All right, so going back to our PDF already, sorry. So back to our PDF. We go up to the rules here. To the create the character section. So creating our character, we're going to assign the dice to the 6 skills and figure out our hit points and get some starting items. And by default, you do not start the game with a power, just to accommodate, because not all settings are going to have supernatural powers, or be high power level to start. Maybe you'll get some later on. And Eclipse Phase is sort of a low power setting. The caveat there is that people have nanotechnology, so they're able to create objects, and with more time they could create very complex things like biological bodies. So you can design a custom body and have it 3D printed for you in a special facility, and have your consciousness transferred into it with a cortical stack. And so that creates some interesting scenarios, as you may imagine, as you have to save your brain, as saving your progress. And being a gate crasher, the last time you may go, you saved your brain before you went through the gate, but there is no way to, once you're through the gate, you don't have access to the internet. You can either bring a backup, some backup storage with you, so you can save yourself onto a hard drive, and then hope that if something happens to you, you can hope that somebody comes and finds your hard drive with yourself on it. You can also take out insurance, basically, and many gate crashers do take out insurance if they don't come back within a specified period of time. The cheap version, they'll just be given a new body with their old save. The expensive version of the insurance, someone will actually go through the gate and try to retrieve them and figure out what happened. So there's a lot there, a lot to work with there, adventure-wise. And the 3D printing aspect of it, though, can get a little ridiculous in an RPG setting, because you have the ability to make any items that you need. And when I play the solo, there is one really good way of limiting that ability, and that is to make the 3D printing facility, the nano printing facility, has to be quite large and heavy, instead of allowing portable portable 3D printing. So that's what I usually do when I play Eclipse Phase solo. And I think I'm going to continue that here. So these guys can go through the gate. They have the items that they have. It's very risky. But they have recourse. If something happens to them, they aren't necessarily dead. But they aren't able to create any items that they want until after they've constructed their nano printing facility, if they decide to do that at all. All right. So for this character I generated the items for, and I looked at this list and I thought this looks like kind of a thiefy character, or someone who sneaks into places. We've got a trap trigger of some kind and a couple of rare items, like they had stolen some rare items. But with this scenario that we've generated, I may change that. And one way to change that here is to change the skills, which dice are assigned to which skills. So I'll think about that, but in the meantime, let us just start and generate another character here. So this top spot is going to be for their name, maybe some description. And we've got the 6 skills. These first 3 are the physical skills: athletics, combat, and stealth. Make a little box. And then we have the mental skills: diplomacy, knowledge, and perception. Okay, and we've got HP. We'll go over how to determine HP in a moment. Got a little box here for keeping track of any conditions that we pick up, positive or negative. Got our equipment section. And then we'll have a section here at the bottom for any powers. And arguably the nanotech is a power, but for our purposes, we're gonna call that equipment, the nanotech. Any powers, because we're sort of going into alien planets, and we have really AIs of godlike, intelligence and capability. Who knows what's going to happen? So there could actually end up being some supernatural powers in this. It'll just be relatively rare. It's probably going to happen. The way I've set this up, your character advances by acquiring powers, so yeah. All right, so the first step here for creating the second character is we're going to randomly generate some items for them, and by default, we start the characters off with, let's see, starting items here. You have your outfit, your bare essential daily carry items. I'll try to figure out what those would be in the setting in a moment. We've got money, our 6 pieces of randomly generated equipment, and then a satchel filled with travel food. I haven't finished all of that for the first character, but let's start it here for the second character. So our first item, using this inventory section, we're going to roll a d10 and a d6. So the d10 will determine which category, and the d6 will determine which item within the category. I'm going to roll on this black felt. It makes the dice a little bit easier to see here. Alright, so d10, we got a 2, d6 a 1. What is that? That works out to an armor piece. I'm just going to write it down for now. We'll figure out the details in a moment. An armor piece. And we've got 9 and 3. That is a rare item. Third item, 4 and 4. Got a tent, hammock, or bedroll. In this situation, it's going to be a tent, I think. At least somebody brought survival gear. Right, the second, this is an 8 and a 6. We've got clothing, specifically extreme environment gear. Alright, so this person is smart. They brought an environment suit. That's 4. We need 2 more. 4 and 1. That is a hunting or trapping tool. And the last item, 8 and 3, that is going to be a fine or elite, it's clothing, it's a fine or elite ensemble. So they have, for some reason, fancy dress. And going through the gate. Very odd, but we'll write it down. Alright, and then both of our characters need some money. Oh man, I smudged. I will fix that smudge. This is an erasable pen. Just use this rubber tip at the other end to rub away the ink here. There, okay. All right, so generating money. We're going to roll 2 d20. I have a second set of dice off to in the top left here. But you can just roll a d20 twice. Our random money is 2d20 times 10. So what do we got here? It's a 14 and a 6. Is that a 6 or a 9? That is a 6. Okay. That's 20 times 10 is 200 money. who has the 200 money. Just looking at the equipment loadout here, I'm starting to get an idea of who these characters are. And I think this guy with the fine or elite ensemble, I already think of this person as a man for some reason, but this is, I think, a man who's going to have more money. Right now, 200 credits is a good amount, but let's see how much the second attempt gives us. Oh, that's way more. Okay, so that's a 17 and a 12. That's going to be 29. All right, so I'm going to give this other person the 200 credits. We're just going to call them credits for now. And then this guy, the wealthier individual, is going to have 290. So even though these are bounty hunters, I kind of think of this person with the survival gear and then a nice outfit as like he's moonlighting, right? He's a wealthier person who's moonlighting as a bounty hunter for some reason. And this person has the actual paper with the bounty on it. That's what these official documents are. I don't know if you could see that. They've got the official documents for the bounty. This doesn't want to autofocus. See if we can. It's a little bit better. So they've got the actual bounty document, an armor piece, 2 rare items, a trap trigger, and a light source. And we'll figure out what these rare items are, but the rest of this gives me the impression that this is the more experienced bounty hunter, right? This is the kind of the boss of the expedition. And this person here is the moonlighter. Armor piece, rare item, tent, extreme environment gear, hunting trapping tool, and the fine clothing. This person came prepared for the wealthy moonlighter came prepared for a gate crash. The more experienced bounty hunter just kind of brought the minimum required stuff, and then has these 2 weird things. We'll figure out what those weird things are. All right. So with that additional information, I'm going to erase what I decided. I'm with a transhuman setting, as you may imagine, gender, you can change your body, and a lot of people will change their gender along with it. So some people stick with something, they're happy with what they've got, but a lot of people do change their gender around on a regular basis. But in my own head, I think of this wealthier person as a man, and this more experienced bounty hunter is the woman. The boss. I usually do that. The boss of the expedition is a lady. I like that way. All right, so let's see, but we're going to reassign the stats here with the new information. And this ink, you can rub it to bring it off, to take it off of the card. You can also use just a damp cloth. It's just hard to get this damp cloth in that little space, so I'm just going to erase it normally. The damp cloth does work better in a lot of situations, but let's see if we can improve our erasure here. All right, it's going to have to do. All right, so the rich guy, he's a moonlighter, but what does he do normally? To determine that, I'm going to use this factions table. Yeah, 5 and 10. So that puts us at a guild or crime family, and 10 is a food and everyday goods guild. So this is like some sort of supermarket mogul, like a chain, the owner of a big chain of either like a supermarket chain owner or someone who has like restaurants, like fine restaurants, or some sort of delicacy that they find and prepare and serve to others. I think I'm liking that idea that they seek out delicacies. And then we have to figure out why this person is on a bounty hunting expedition. They could have just, if they could have just paid to gate crash with a more official group, why are they going sort of low key with this bounty hunter? We'll figure that out. So this guy, he is presumably has some previous experience with gate crashing to look for exotic foods for the wealthy. So what would his skills look like if that were the case? He's probably going to have some athletics, knowledge, perception, but diplomacy, combat, and stealth might be secondary. So I'm going to put this guy's perception up high. If he's a foodie, he has a focus on, taste and scent, right? So we're going to put his perception as the 4, the D4. And we'll put his knowledge as the D6. He has a wide knowledge of foods, and he's a wide traveler, so probably a number of other things. And he's in the business world and runs in elite circles, so he's probably picked up a lot of knowledge about different subjects. And then we're going to have athletics as his D8. He's pretty good at athletics. I'm going to give him a 10 in diplomacy. and then a 12 in stealth. And I would say his worst stat is combat. Yeah. Alright, so that is our Moonlighter. Seeker of Delicacies here. He's got the credits. There's 6 items. And then we have a few other things to give him. He's got D6 travel food. One travel food. Call them rations. 1 ration. Down at the bottom here. His iconic outfit. He's got this extreme environment gear. But as a gate crasher, they do send like a probe in first, so they kind of know what the environment is like. But people still go through with, you know, rugged sort of coveralls, some sort of gate crashing suit. So the iconic outfit in this case, in this scenario, I'm going to call it, each of these people gets an iconic outfit, right? So I'm going to say that it's right, your gate crashing suit. It's sort of, it's a onesie with a bunch of pockets, and it does have some emergency functions, like for extreme heat and cold, or not as much as the extreme environment gear, but has, you know, some capability of moderating temperature. And it comes with a little breather for toxic environments, just in case. Also, I think in the book, even the basic gate crashing suit has some healing properties. It has some nanites in it that will speed healing of injuries. Although it's going to be limited charges in my version of the nanotechnology. It isn't as portable. So they've got limited charges of this medical nanites in their gate crashing suits. And then we have bare essential daily carry items. That is going to be, I'm going to make things a little bit easy on myself here and just call it a gate crashing kit. The sort of things in a gate crashing kit have like emergency antenna for broadcasting back to the gate. We've got the base computer, although it's part of like a collective gate crashing kit, but sort of like the home hard drive that stores all the important data. And it also generates a limited, you know, Wi-Fi area. So we've got those data capabilities. And then it will also have come with some tents and maybe an all-terrain vehicle. Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, basic logic for gate crashing. You'd want some sort of all-terrain vehicle. And a basic tent. So that's all part of the gate crashing kit. Let's see. For the bounty hunter, how many rations did she have? 4. Okay. Oops. 4 rations. All right. Let's think about her. Oops. Let's think about her background and her stats. Smudge this pretty badly. Okay. 4 rations. So she's a bounty hunter. I'm going to draw a card here to determine what her general personality is. So we have 4 of hearts. That is rebellious and chaotic. Very Dog, the bounty hunter. And how did these two meet? I'm going to draw an event. 6 of spades. Love interest. Dark, unsettling love interest. For the events. I'm going to show that to you on the PDF so you understand what I'm talking about here. Under the events table here, we got 6 of spades, so 6 is love interest, spades is dark, unsettling. Dark, unsettling love interest, and that's how these two met. That adds a wrinkle. So the question is are they somehow in a romantic relationship, or does one of them have a crush on the other in a weird way, or is it some third person? Oh boy. This is the putting them in a relationship with each other is probably the simplest answer. But I'm trying to explore the other one just to see if it's more interesting for some reason to have a third person involved in this dark and unsettling love triangle, if it is a triangle. And if it's dark and unsettling, why has it brought them together? Perhaps I think I've thought of something here. So the bounty hunter lady had was in a bad relationship with some sort of abusive person, And the wealthy restaurateur here helped her get rid of him, or they, them. And that helped her trust this guy enough to bring him on a job. And he also has previous experience. So that could be a really good explanation for why these two are doing this together. And I generally avoid having a romantic relationship right out of the gate, especially between the two main characters. Not always, I guess, but in this case, I think it's a little bit more interesting to have that third party. So I like that scenario, that she had an abusive partner and he helped her get rid of them. And that created a bond between them. All right, so she's this rebellious, chaotic type person. And a more experienced bounty hunter. So with that information, we're going to figure out her skills. That's actually going to change her HP also. We'll go over that in a moment. All right. Being a bounty hunter, she probably needs some combat and athletics. I'm going to say probably diplomacy is her least important skill. Put athletics as her best. And combat as second best. I'm going to actually put have perception be her third best as the D8. Then for stealth and knowledge, I'm a little bit torn here. I think knowledge is going to be a little bit more important. So I'm going to give that one the D10, knowledge D10. And then stealth D12. Pen is a little gummed up. There we go. Okay. So these are the stats and inventory that we have so far. And we're going to use this to determine their HP, their starting HP, hit points. And that's basically how much damage they can take. In this system, every time you're hit, it's one damage, 1 HP gone. If you get critically hit, it's 2 HP. And then you can also get conditions in a number of ways. So, but the starting HP, so you have the physical skills and the mental skills. Then you have the 4, 6, and 8 are the better dice. So for each physical skill, you have one of your good dice in. Your base HP of 5 goes up by 1. So you start with 5 HP, and she's got 2 good dice in physical skills. So that boosts that up to 7, but then she's got 1 in a mental skill, so it drops it down 1. So that is 6. 6 HP. I put her at 6 of 6. My pen has gotten weird. Okay, that's better. Wait for that to dry a little and try it again. This guy has got 2 good dice in mental skills. So his starting 5 will go down to 3. And he's got his 1 in physical, so that's 4 HP. We've got our stats done and our HP done. And a starting scenario. Got a little bit of an idea of these guys' relationship going in and why they're there. Before we can actually start fully, officially start the campaign, we have to figure out what these rare items are. And maybe add some detail to the rest of their gear. We can decide that on the fly, some of that stuff on the fly, but for the rare items, I do actually want to figure that out. Before we stop, and I think that's going to be enough for our first session here, and the next session we will actually start playing. But let's figure out what these rare items are. And that's gonna depend a lot on the setting. So when I play solo games, I actually will often smush a couple of settings together. And I'm using Eclipse Phase, obviously. I did think for a while about what I'd want to blend Eclipse Phase with to come up with my solo setting. And I started to think maybe Lancer would be a good one. Lancer is a mech game, but it's like, it encompasses the whole galaxy. And there are, big colony ships and freighters and gate travel to different star systems throughout the galaxy. There's, the outer rim. I think they call it the long rim in Lancer, and then there's corporations. The big major, I think there are 4 major companies, like mega corporations, that make the mechs and a lot of other things. It's a very, corporate vision of the future. And that meshes pretty well with Eclipse Phase. But it also makes some things more complicated. Like Lancer has that much grander scale of the whole galaxy, and Eclipse Phase is the solar system plus a couple of other gate travel planets, a handful. And if we expand the scope of the known world to encompass worlds all over the galaxy, and it kind of makes this gate travel a little bit less mysterious. So I don't know if I want to do that scale. And And there are a couple of other things in Lancer, like I don't know if I'd be able, if I really want to do mechs. That's really, Lancer is all about the mechs. So I don't know if I want to use Lancer. But I haven't really figured out. And the game that I use as a potential second game or second setting will inform what these rare items are a little bit. In Eclipse Phase, rare items, there are a lot of bespoke items because of the nanotechnology. You can have a lot of, you can relatively easily have, you know, one-of-a-kind designer items like clothing and decor, and even your own body could be designer. So those kinds of rare items aren't really that rare. The rare things fall more into the category of restricted, you know, officially restricted weapons and nanotechnology and AI. And I don't know if that would be appropriate here. Because running Eclipse Phase with a group, having a nano fabricator, like a portable nano fabricator in the party can be a big problem for the GM anyway, because it basically lets people have any equipment that they want within a few minutes. We don't really want to have that in this game. Oops, sorry. So that really limits what these rare items could be. There are a few other things in Eclipse Phase that could be rare items, like alien samples or something. Occasionally, you know, people have found alien plants and animals through the gates. I just don't know what use those would be here, unless they're somehow useful for bounty hunting or survival in the wilderness. That's more likely. So I do want to, but I do want to think about if I want to incorporate a second setting somehow, and what that setting would be. Should it be a fantasy or sci-fi? It could be either. You can incorporate fantasy elements into sci-fi and vice versa very easily. So I'm gonna pause for a second and think about it, and then I'll be back once I've figured it out. All right, I'm back. For me, it's the next day. I got a little distracted, but I figured out what the other setting, or actually probably more than one setting I want to incorporate is. It's been turned into an RPG, but it started out as a series of art books. I think the first one was called Tales from the Loop. Maybe you've heard of it. Let me switch over here to the RPG book. There it is. This setting is very Kids on Bikes-esque. It's role-playing in the 80s that never was. Sort of a liminal space, weird technology stuff going on in Sweden. The art books, there are no words in them, but if you look at the whole book, you get an idea of some sort of story behind what's going on. And, the artist is very good at, I think, painting the effects of light. Everything is very, the sky is always really overcast, and he does a good job of making all the objects in his paintings feel realistic in that environment. So when I really like the idea, part of the not so much the details of the setting, the place where it happens, like Sweden, or alternate Sweden from the 80s, but the idea that you've got people, machines, and then also this mysterious other force that is like the machines are kind of like a gateway to these mysterious forces. I won't spoil the actual story of Tales from the Loop. It does have a plot to it. But for me, at least, that's the impression I get from the pictures. Right, so it's an alternate 80s where different kinds of research was being done, and things got a little stranger than they did in real life. It does have a lot of aesthetic qualities in common with Stranger Things. But if we're going to do Eclipse Phase and Tales from the Loop, then it opens up, to my mind, a little bit of Moebius possibilities. Moebius is a comic artist, a French comic artist. Let me move that. That has inspired many, many other critically acclaimed artists. And his big thing, he was a world builder, but his visual style, he was able to convey a lot of detail with seemingly relatively simple lines. Everything seemed to have a logical function, even if you didn't really have any idea what it did. You could make a guess, what all these little buttons and levers do. So he was an inspiration for a lot of artists for that reason. But the art of Moebius here, his stories explored the relationship between humans and organic life and technology and nature, and people trying to control nature and the negative effects that had. So, that is possibly a third influence on the setting for our game here. just those themes of nature versus technology, and perhaps some other mysterious third force at work. So what we're going to do with that here is we can finally figure out what these rare items are for our two characters. I gave them both names. So I flip through books to find names that I like. I don't take a long time thinking about it, but I right away got some names that I liked. And so our bounty hunter lady is Zipra Camwick, or just Zip Camwick. And the wealthy gentleman here is Jareth Rosevine. And both of those names I got from, this is a printout of my PDF version of Electric Bastionland. And most of this book is just like character classes, but each character class comes with a few sample names. And then they also come with like a company or person that character owes money to. But it's good. There are a lot of kind of goofy, weird names in there. And it's a good resource for a number of other things. I would highly recommend this book for solo role players for a number of reasons. It does a good job of teaching how to GM and how to maintain a compelling world for your players, and even if the player is you. And the book itself is a big city, with a focus on like there's a mostly it's like a chaotic city with eons and eons of development and conflict. So you can find all kinds of stuff, Magitech type stuff, in the nooks and crannies of the city. It has a train, and there's an outer territory, a big outer territory that's mostly empty. And there are also things like cosmic angels and a noble class that uses very ceremonial weapons. Yeah. And this is all labeled example content, but it's just good stuff. The Bureaucro Labyrinth. Adventures in Bureaucracy. So this is a great book. Also, this book, the Book of Symbols. This can help with all kinds of stuff. Names, just answering random questions that aren't just yes or no questions. The big downside I found to this book is that it tends to flop open in the middle. But if you figure out a way to kind of avoid the middle, just opening in the middle over and over again, it's great. It's just filled with symbolism, a little bit of a description, but it goes over, human body, culture, nature, all kinds of stuff. Fire, yeah. So I'm probably going to end up using those books and this one. This is just copyright free illustrations of animals. I do have some tools, my GM tables here for coming up with like the abilities of creatures, and that will inform, to a certain extent, it will inform what they look like. But if you need a little more help, you can always use just a bestiary from any RPG. I like this book because I open up a page and I've got a bunch of ideas here to work with. And it's grouped into themes. Marsupials and zebra and donkeys. Wild donkeys, probably. Yeah. So if I need a creature, I will often, open up at least to 2 pages to make that qualities of a cow and qualities of a frog somehow, and then I'll have an ability or 3, and we'll see what kind of creature we get that way. And last but not least, if we do go into combat, I have my little tiles here. They're shiny, so that I have this ring light here, so they might reflect my ring light. But we'll see if we can use those. If these are too shiny, I also have a big grid that is just, a cardboard grid that might work better, but it's just too big for the table, so it's not my favorite. I like these little tiles. All right. So let us think. With our new settings figured out, the rest of our setting figured out, I believe I will call this campaign. We got Eclipse Phase and Tales from the Loop as the major elements. So I think I'm going to call it Phase Loop. The Phase Loop campaign. And then we've got our 2 characters. So, just to tie up this very long video, at this point very long, let's figure out our rare items. Alright. So, I'm going to pull out some of my tools here. I believe for these rare items, I'm going to try using this this Moebius book, World of Edena, and see what inspires here. Okay. So, this is a little junky vehicle. We've already said that this gate crashing kit comes with some all-terrain vehicles. I think that what I'd like to do with that idea for Zip here, for Zipra, make one of her rare items into a mount. Some sort of animal mount. So let's do that. We've got that sort of dinosaur-y quadruped creature. Let us get out our animal book. Oh, we got frogs again and birds. So we'll call this first rare item just a saurian mount. I'm going to blend some of the qualities of all of the frog and the bird to make this kind of a hoppy biped saurian mount. It's agile and jumpy. So I'm going to put in parentheses here, biped, agile. Okay. And really that's going to do for detail on the mount. We're going to see if it has any abilities. So for the abilities table, I'll switch over to the PDF. Oh, it's got to reload. Okay. There we go. So for the abilities table right here, first step is to draw and divide by 4, rounding down to figure out the number of abilities this creature has. Got an 8. So this creature has 2 abilities. And then we're also going to draw an additional card to determine the weakness or deficiency of the creature. Got 2 abilities and 1 deficiency. First ability, 9 of diamonds. So that is teleport or blink. Second ability, 3 of hearts, climbing. Okay. And then our weakness or deficiency, we have the 8 of clubs, mind control. All right. So, teleport or blink. What was 3 of hearts? Climbing. And 8 of clubs. It's weak to mind control. All right. So we will on the back here. I'm going to stick that on the back of the card. Also have to name it. So I'm going to put in blink, climb, weak versus mind control. All right. Then just to come up with a name, for our mount. Got Quith, Champ, Percy, Frotescue. And actually down here it says Stub Prosthetics, but Stub could be a name also. Zipper Camwick names her mount. I don't know if she would name him Champ. Or Stub. Those are the two. Champ or Stub. I'll say Champ red, Stub black. Red. Alright, so this is Champ. Alrighty. And then for our second, we have 3 rare items to come up with. So we've got a second one for Zip, and then Jareth here only has 1. Okay. Let's see here. This is a little nudity here, but I'll try to keep this a little PG. But there's a little bit of nudity and violence in this book. I'm just going to keep flipping until I've got an idea. Okay, I think I've got one. So, following along the theme here for Jareth, bringing the practical survival gear. I think for this second rare item, he's got sort of a pod, an expandable pod for healing. So I'm going to call that inflatable nanopod. Right. Also, its resources are limited. It's less limited than the suits, but it won't last forever. Right. Right, so we need one more. My phone. I'm going to ignore it for now because my phone is one of my cameras. right, so for this last item, I'm going to use this book. Scent. That gives me ideas. Ascent and spider. I think that's pretty clear. So for this last item, we've got some sort of climbing harness with arms. I'm just going to call it a climbing harness. For now. And then I'm going to put in parentheses spider. In case I forget, later what that came from. Okay, so we've got our 3 rare items. That looks pretty good to me. One thing I forgot to mention yet is these armor pieces. They each grant 1 HP, but then they break after they're used. They can be repaired, but without too much difficulty. But you have to take time, take a rest to repair them. All right, so that is our characters done. We have a pretty good idea of the setting. So let me see if I have any final thoughts here. For this is our session 0. It's a little bit longer. I'm okay with this one being a little bit longer for character creation, but the actual gameplay sessions from here on out, I'm going to try to keep under an hour. We'll see if I can do that. But that is it for now. And I'm going to make a few notes on here about the details of the campaign that we've generated so far. So next time we can jump right in with we'll do a short recap and then jump right in. Okay? All right, thank you. I'll see you next time.